Hey guys, welcome back to the Young Investors Podcast. We're doing episode 50 and it's a very special episode because we are live. So if you're listening to us here on, say, Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever, go to YouTube because we've got a video version of the podcast. It's a very special episode. We've finally made it to number 50. I've got Hamish here. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, it's good. I'm so excited to do this again.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
we were just saying before that the first one was in March, so it actually wasn't all that long ago, but it feels like forever ago. We've just been so busy.
There's been so much going on. It just feels like, I was sure it's been like a year or something.
Yeah.
But it's been like 5 months.
Because I came down for round one of the AFL.
Yeah, so it would have been March.
I went on such a footy bender on that weekend. I think I saw like 3 games in 3 days or something like that. Just because I live in Canberra, it's just like the footy basically never comes to Canberra. So and I'm such a fan. I was just like, get down. That was good. Remember, who did we see? We saw the first one, Richmond and Carlton.
Yes.
Yeah, and Tigers won. Yeah, Tigers won that one. It's always the way with Carlton. They start out strong in that first round and then they realise they're going to get beaten horribly.
Yeah, and that's interesting. We did that one the first game of the year and now we're doing this on the week of the grand final.
Oh, the week of the grand
final.
That's
amazing.
There you go. Unfortunately, we're not going to the grand final though.
No,
although Richmond's playing, because you're kind of a Tigers fan.
It's semi. I don't like saying it because I don't want an actual Richmond fan to call me out.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, remember in 1982 when they played the... Yeah, that was a great year.
Don't ask me about 4 rounds ago.
So anyway, in this podcast, guys, we're going to be... we got a lot to talk about, actually. But this podcast is going to be mainly about you guys. So we're just going to have a bit of a chat about... how we got started on YouTube and how we got started doing the podcast and kind of our experience working with the podcast so far. Doing 50 episodes is quite a lot. That's like 50 hours of content.
That's what I was thinking. 50 hours of recording, 50 hours, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours of editing. It's,
man.
When you start these kinds of things, it's just amazing. Like, as time goes on and you look back, it's just amazing how much we've done with these kinds of things, with YouTube and everything. It's like, and I think I passed 200 videos on YouTube just recently, and that's just amazing to me because it's like 2 hours of editing for each. There's a lot of planning that goes into that. Yeah. And
well, it's what we do now. This is like our job now.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's what I do full time. So.
And interesting news. It's also, by the time this goes out, also what I now do full time.
Oh, fantastic.
Which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about YouTube and that sort of stuff. We'll see how long. I feel like we could just ramble on YouTube for hours. We could, how long have you got? We could just keep talking.
We've got plenty of time.
Yeah, but we're going to get through a lot of questions that you guys have submitted. We asked you guys, reached out on Instagram. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, go and follow us, because that's basically where we ask, like, if we're doing one of these special podcasts, we always reach out to you guys on Instagram and see if you guys have any questions. And we've got stacks of questions. We've got more questions than we know what to do with. So we'll slowly but surely get through all these topics that people want us to have a chat about. We got some really interesting questions, not just investing related today as well. We got some pretty out there kind of interesting questions. So we'll see what we get to. But should we get started?
Yeah, where should we start?
Yeah, I reckon we'll start talking about YouTube, because when did you start YouTube? Because I think I started my channel in February of 2017.
Yeah, so I started mine the 31st of January. I looked this up just before. 31st of January, 2018. So I started exactly a year after you, which is really interesting because I'm always like, I used to do this a lot, maybe not so much anymore, but I'd always look at your numbers and be like, you're a year ahead of me.
Yeah. It's so funny because it's true. Like, even after we finish recording these podcasts, we always end up having a chat.
Yeah.
And you basically are like, it's just like a year difference in terms of where I was.
Yeah.
Like, it was about in fact, you're actually catching me.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, you are. Because you just hit 10,000. I think I hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube in early this year. So you've actually got... Right. Because that one video, literally, like, I say this when I was talking, I've done videos on this in the past, but I made that one video about flipping sports betting. It's just like ridiculous. I think it's got over 600,000 views, which is fantastic.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's fantastic, but it's just like, I think I've got a quarter of all of my subscribers from just that video. Just that video.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah.
It was 2 months ago, actually. And I was on 5,000 subscribers and now I'm on 10 because of one video.
Yeah. And people always say, I guess, say, Brandon, you're talking about like online business and that sort of stuff, like literally all the time now. Like, can you just talk about something? Like, I get it. You want me to start an online business. But I'm like, the reason that I'm so passionate about it is because like both of us, we talk about it and we see it happening like in front of our faces. It's like the power of the internet. And even starting something like a simple old YouTube channel, if you have a particular niche, you have a particular interest, it's so powerful. Like if you can make good quality content, which is what we do, it's a really powerful tool.
Yeah, and I mean, no one's good when you start out. Like I'd say our content's a lot better than it was. I mean, I wouldn't say it's amazing, but like someone might watch our content and be like, wow, I can't do that. Like that's like too... it's quite good. Like it's pretty good production. We use lights, we use good cameras, and like we do a lot of planning. But like it didn't start like that. I mean, I'm hesitant to say I encourage people to. What's that?
What were you gonna say? No,
I was just gonna say I'm hesitant to tell people to go and watch my first video because it's terrible. But go and watch it because it's terrible.
Yeah, exactly. That should give you encouragement.
I mean, the camera angle is awful. I think I had the camera like down below and there was no lights. I was reading off a piece of paper and you could tell. And like every time the camera would cut, I'd like look down before the camera would cut. Like I wouldn't like look into the lens cut. It'd just be like cut. And looking back, it's like that's awful. Why did I upload that? But I mean, you have to start somewhere. And
I think the first videos I made, I was recording on a GoPro. Literally a GoPro.
I remember some of your videos. Fisheye.
Yeah, super fisheye. Like you could see everything in the room around me. Like wasn't like I was just this little dude in the center of the frame. And I'd have it like, I remember I had no tripod or anything. I'd have the GoPro sitting on top of like a what you call it, like a corner table or what do you call it? Yeah, I don't know, corner table. And then I'd have two boxes, like cardboard boxes, stacked on top of one another. And then I would balance the GoPro on top of the boxes. Then I had this little. I didn't even have a mic, so at the time I was just recording through the GoPro's inbuilt mic, which is garbage.
It's awful.
It's so bad. It's terrible. And I looked up some mic that I could record and I could just plug it into my GoPro, and that just improved the audio so much. But like literally one of the best investments that I have ever made in terms of YouTube is definitely this camera. Like it makes it so, just having like, even it doesn't have to be fancy, but just a basic DSLR camera, it makes such a big difference in terms of the video quality. It's ridiculous. We're running on the same camera, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. We're both on the Canon 80D. I mean, that was definitely a big expense for both of us, probably. I mean, it was a big decision.
It's like $1,000, $2,000 or something.
I think $1,500 with the tripod and
all things included, memory cards and stuff. You're probably looking at maybe $2,000 back when we bought them. Probably not anymore. In fact, Canon just announced, I think they're 90.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, new camera in the lineup, but I don't know anything about it. But
I don't even know much about cameras. I just bought the one that.
Well, I remember because you were asking me what I was recording.
I've pretty much done that for every bit of camera equipment. I was like, oh, what lights do you have? What tripod do you have? We have the exact same kit.
We do. We were just laughing about that before. We've got literally the same kit.
Same arm. I bought this like a week ago.
We'll cut between. You can't see the lights, but we can cut between the video feeds here. We've got the same mic. We've got the same boom arm. Yeah. We've got the same camera.
Same tripod
as well. The Manfrotto one. Same lights, basically.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, you're Brandon 2.0 right here.
Yeah, I'm just a fraud. No, but honestly, that's how I got started, because really I was just watching your content.
Oh, right.
And I mean, I was already well into investing. I was just trying to consume as much content as possible. And I think the main thing for me was that with investing, there's not a lot of people, at least in my situation, I didn't have a lot of people to have an outlet and talk to about.
Yeah. Same here, to be honest.
I found myself just sort of rambling to my parents, just like about stocks, and they'd be like, yeah, good job, Hamish. Yeah. Can you do the dishes now? like just rant. And I kind of was just craving some kind of outlet. And then I saw what you were doing, and I just watched you for a while. Yeah. I was subscribed under 100 subscribers.
Yes.
So I'm a true Aussie Wealth fan.
Yeah, that's great. That's so good, man. That's a long time ago now.
It was.
That's a long time. Yeah.
And I wish I'd started earlier. Like I watched you for probably close to a year before I even
could have
started.
been like basically the same on YouTube.
We could have been. I could have been so much wealthier.
I don't know if YouTube's the path to wealth, but
no,
certainly
it's not.
Well, what you've been doing with your own, we can talk about that if you like.
Yeah.
Certainly, like we were just talking about it before, the power of online business, and that's something that you've found a lot in this year as well, with you starting up your platform. So tell us about that. When did you start that?
Yeah, so I sort of decided that I wanted to do something like this right at the start of the year. Because I wanted to take this full time, and like you said, like you can't do it with YouTube because it's so unpredictable. I mean, you're relying on ads and you're relying on the amount of views that you get, and
and the views, like for people that don't know, the views fluctuate from month to month so much. Yeah. And sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes your views can be high and your ad revenue's down. It's just, it's impossible to try and predict with any sort of accuracy. I mean, if you look at, it's like stocks over a very long time, you see it go up over time, but you look at next month or the month after that and who knows what it's going to do. And you can imagine if you're someone that's relying on that as your only source of income, that's a stressful place to be.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was looking for something a little bit more consistent. I just decided what I wanted to do was just kind of create a little bit of a community. People just join up to this community, and I basically just help people analyze businesses. I have a very analytical mind, I think, and I like processes. So I was just very obsessed for a long time about creating a process that you can go through in order to analyze stocks and to eliminate all the ones that are terrible investments immediately, or even businesses that might go on to do great but are very unpredictable. And just find like a small number of really predictable businesses. I basically created this community that I call Learn by Example. And basically I release case study examples of stock analysis to the members. And How
many have you done? How many are you up to right now?
We've done 18. So 18 hours
That's a lot.
of presenting, because they get the report and then they get a 1 hour presentation as well.
Okay. So what do you do? Like how are they different? So do you write the report, and the report's like the meaning, moat, management, margin? Is that the kind of the system you follow, like the rule 1 method?
Yeah. So essentially it starts off with like circle of competence, where you're starting to understand the business. What do they sell? What markets do they sell in? What countries do they sell their products to? Pie charts, all of that stuff. Then we look at moat, which is looking at some kind of competitive advantage that the business might have, looking at the core numbers, their sales, earnings per share, looking at management, and then doing intrinsic valuation.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And then do you take the content from the written report and then present it in a video form?
Yeah. So it's kind of like the written report is kind of my whole process of analyzing a business, and then the presentation's purpose is kind of explaining why I did certain things. Like, why did I include this? Why did I say that this is, sometimes businesses' numbers look great, but under the surface, they're not so great. And sort of explaining the little intricacies that come with each different business. Because I think that when it comes to the process that we kind of have learned and we use in the stock market, the process itself is quite simple. Like we said, it's like meaning, like understand the business. Does it have a competitive advantage? Does it have good management? And estimating what we're going to get out of it. What are we going to get back? That process is pretty simple, but I think what's difficult is understanding the little intricacies that come with each different business. And I wanted to help solve that problem.
There are a lot of things like that. That's what I've been focusing on a lot lately, just looking at companies and stuff, is I'm trying to put a lot more emphasis on understanding the business. I feel like that's over anything else. That's got to be your number one thing that you have to do before an event. I reckon understanding the business is so key, because you can never know enough. And you're right. If you look through like the Rule 1 book and that sort of stuff, you probably could, you shouldn't, but you probably could boil it down to a formula. You do this, then you do this, then you check these numbers, and then that's a green tick and so on. But you're right. There are so many little things that if you don't understand the business, there might be some little thing that you would never pick up otherwise that is actually propping up those numbers that could actually bring the downfall of a company.
Definitely, yeah. Well, I can give you an example. One of the business that I was just analyzing. It's a restaurant. It's a restaurant chain, and essentially, if you look at the 4 numbers that we kind of look at, and Phil Town sort of suggests you look at, is looking at revenue, earnings per share, equity, and free cash flow. If you look at their numbers, all of them are growing at 15 to 20% per year
Right, so
over
real
the
strong.
long term. So it looks fantastic on the surface.
Yeah.
But if you dig a little bit deeper, when it comes to something like a restaurant business, this is where understanding the business comes really important, is that the reason why they've been able to grow their numbers at double digits is really through acquiring stores and building out a lot of stores. So if you have more restaurants, naturally you're going to generate more revenue and cash flow. But if you look at the sales within the specific stores, and the measure you can use for that is same store sales growth, it's terrible. So the individual restaurants are not, more customers aren't coming in, they're not coming in more frequently, and they're not spending more money. Which means that they can grow their numbers at double digits maybe for the next few years. But if the underlying restaurants are performing poorly, the business isn't really going to have any long-term prospects.
So it's kind of like the world's getting worse and worse, but I look better because I'm buying more and more of it, kind of thing.
Exactly. I mean, you can. There's kind of two parts to it. You need to expand the number of restaurants, but the underlying restaurants need to be performing well.
True.
And if they're not, then there's going to be a point where you can't expand anymore, and you're relying on the growth of the restaurants themselves to generate more cash flow. And if more customers aren't coming in, then there's clearly no competitive advantage there.
It doesn't work. Yeah. That's really interesting. So that's what you do. So, and how many users are you up to now on your?
Almost 100.
Almost 100.
Yeah, we have about just under 90, I think. So
that's so good.
I'm definitely. We're closing in on probably a maximum number of people, I think, because I think one of the biggest benefits of it is that I can dedicate a lot of my time to helping people. I answer people's questions pretty much within a couple of hours, sometimes within a couple of minutes if people have questions. And I think that's a huge advantage, and I don't want to lose that. So there will be a point at which I'll just close it off. It's been really good, and as it's grown, the value, it's kind of like a networking effect, because the more people who are in it, at least for up to a certain point, the more they can bounce ideas off each other and help each other, and the better like the Q&A live streams are, more people are participating and that sort of thing. So it's been fantastic.
Well, you're clearly doing a good thing, because when did you start that?
I started in March. Yeah.
That's literally unreal. And you've got 100 people following, and you've got, what did you say, 18 different companies that you've looked properly in depth into.
Yes, yeah.
Which is really quite phenomenal, really, because it takes a bloody long time. Because we would never put out stuff that's garbage. That's just not us.
Yeah.
So you would never find us making a half-page report, just half bullshitting. I can imagine you would have taken a lot of time into each one of these reports.
Yeah.
So
it's fun because I release them every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks towards the end of the week, I'm getting really anxious and making sure that everything's perfect in them. And it's awesome to have those deadlines because it keeps me pushing, and not only is it awesome for the members, it's good for me personally because I'm forced to go out there and find really great companies and even find not so good company. It's good for me personally as well. It's kind of the perfect combination because I get to do exactly what I love to do, which is analyze businesses every day. And I get to do it as a full-time job.
That's great.
That's
awesome.
That's kind of what we're both striving for, and we're both going to achieve.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. No, good on you for starting it up. It's amazing that you obviously offering a lot of value if you've gotten 100 people already.
Yeah, so www.hamishhodder.com.
That's it. That's the plug.
I had to squeeze that in.
This whole podcast is an ad. Bet you weren't expecting that.
So tell us about you starting YouTube, because we spoke about me, but
I started as I was saying in February of 2017. Did I say 2017? Just absolute garbage, like what we were saying. Just trying to. Well, I started investing, and I'd spoken to my uncle who's runs. He works in superannuation, so he knows a bit about stock market investing. Anyway, I was just talking to him. This is when I was first starting out, learning to invest and that sort of stuff. And I have no background in finance or investing or anything like that. So I really was starting from nothing. You went to uni for a couple of years to learn about this stuff. But for me, I just started from scratch. So anyway, I called my uncle up and I was like, hey, how do I what should I start thinking about with investing? You know, I realize my mind's been opened up to the idea of I got to make my money earn me more money and compounding and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and the classic, like, this is just classic beginner in the stock market, right? He goes, yeah, Brandon, look, it's good that you want to get started, but like, I probably just recommend that you start with maybe a listed investment company or an ETF or something like that. Just widely diversified, you know, dip your toe in and see how you go. And so I took his advice. No, I didn't take his advice. I listened to his advice, but I didn't take it. It's like classic beginner. I was like, no, I can do this. I can do this. So start investing in individual companies. I have no background in finance or investing whatsoever. I've never listened to a talk by Warren Buffett or anything like that. It's just like, I don't know what the hell is coming into my brain, but start investing in these individual companies. Sure enough, they don't do very well. I was basically just investing based on what I heard on YouTube or what other people were talking about.
It's where everyone starts.
It is where
everyone starts by just reading articles. They read the Motley Fool and they say, they read an article and they go, wow, this guy's really releasing all the secrets here.
Yeah, exactly.
This article's so good. And then later you realize there's 100 of those articles that come out a day about every stock.
Yeah.
And there's like views on both sides for every single stock. And
So anyway, I did that, made a lot of mistakes, and then I was like, shit, I've made a lot of mistakes here. So I think my first couple of videos were really just talking about very basic concepts about like mistakes that I'd made. Like I started talking about basic stock market measures and that sort of stuff. And I think one of my first videos was like, what's a listed investment company or something like that? Just like actually going back and saying, hey, look, I made these mistakes. You shouldn't make these mistakes kind of thing. And I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I don't think there was anyone really in the Australian, there was a couple of people in the investing niche on YouTube, but no one from Australia really. There was Darren who does the Aussie Share Trader, and he was on a couple of hundred subscribers, I think, and I kind of networked with him a little bit, and then I started. But
were you aware of any of the other bigger American?
Yeah.
Were any of those channels established at that point? Jeremy and Ryan
Scribner was, Jeremy was at Financial Education. Nate, I actually started at about the same time as Nate O'Brien.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, he was only like 2 months ahead of me, which is crazy. That guy, he has had such incredible growth on YouTube. If you want to see an unreal growth story on YouTube, go and look up Nate O'Brien. We definitely got to try and get him on the podcast at some stage.
He figured out the formula that worked for his channel. There's no one formula. It's kind of like you got to work out what works for your channel and your audience. But he figured it out and he just kept hitting it on the head.
Yeah. Unreal.
It was amazing. Sometimes he'd do 2-3 videos in a row that would just be well and exceed what his channel should have been generating.
Yeah, for where he was at the time. Yeah,
exactly,
it was just unreal. I mean, at the time, I think he was a channel maybe tens of thousands of subscribers. So I was probably less than that. I was probably trying to get up towards 10,000. And he was pulling these videos that eventually now they've snowballed into like millions of views, literally millions of views, which is just unreal. Like, good on him, because the content that he makes is good too. Like, it's content that everyone needs to know, but he's very good at figuring out how to best structure the video algorithmically as well for YouTube. Yeah.
And the thing that's amazing about the niche that we're in, the segment of YouTube that we're in, is that the ad rates are so high that it really, if you get 1 million views on a video in finance,
it's good money.
It's good money. I mean,
I've been talking to a couple of other YouTubers that aren't in the investing area, and we're talking about CPMs. Is it CPM? I don't even know what that stands. Is that
cost per milli, and then it's supposed to be cost per 1,000 views, I believe, something like that.
I don't even know what it stands. Yeah, but cost. It's how much you get paid for every 1,000 views. I was talking to some YouTubers which are getting like $5-6,
and that's good for most. If you're in entertainment or any other category, most categories really, $3, $4, $5 per 1,000 views is good.
Yeah. And then we're sitting here, well, I don't know what yours is, but mine's currently sitting at about $20.
Yeah.
So it's literally like 4x on what the other niches are. Yeah. And it really just, with YouTube, it just comes down to what advertisers are going to be on your videos. So that going ad rate must be much higher when it comes to finance and investing as to what it might be for someone that just makes video game related content or something where where maybe they're getting adverts for, video games or toys or TV shows or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that people in the finance niche, people who are watching finance videos are spending a lot more money. Therefore, there's a lot more demand for advertisers to advertise on finance videos, and then therefore there's a lot more competition and drives up prices, which is really good for us when we're creating the content. Not so good when we want to advertise our own products because it is expensive.
It gets expensive. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I find that interesting. One thing that I've been focusing on, I've been focusing a lot on business recently, like the nature of business and how it works. That's one advantage as well of having, say, a personal following or having something like a YouTube channel, is that it can be, like, obviously you don't want to turn it into advertising because that's just scammy and terrible, but it can be a sales channel as well. And if you've built that up yourself and you have control over that sales channel, then it's free for you as well. So I find that pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, my channel will get views between 50 and 100,000 per month, and to put an ad in front of that many people on, say, Facebook or on YouTube is a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, we make pretty good income from just the YouTube ads. Just from our views. I mean, it's pretty expensive for advertisers. Yeah, comparatively to other channels. I mean, yeah.
So how many views in a month, or let's maybe take the last 28 days-ish or so and compare. Do you know how many views you've got?
Yeah, so like last 28 days, I had a video do particularly well, so this is abnormal for me. But I did about 100,000 views. And that's going to equate to about $1,800 Australian.
That's not bad. Yeah. So, and how many views did you say that was? Sorry?
100,000.
100,000, yeah. And I'm on consistently probably around 150,000 views a month, and that'd get me maybe 2,700 Australian dollars. Yeah. So it's not, you can tell that if, like, this is the hard thing, if you're a small YouTube channel, it's incredibly difficult to keep pushing through because it doesn't get anywhere near, I mean, you could argue that you could make much more money just working a full-time job, like just doing a normal desk-based job or something like that. You could probably make more money than what, if you just look at YouTube. It's only really when it starts getting into the higher view numbers where it starts to make sense. And you've got like a library of content that's still churning away, earning you views. So, like, because I still only get maybe like 2,000, 3,000 views on a given video, say. But and that doesn't equal 150,000 views a month. And it's mostly it's just like the views just trickling in because I've got so many videos now. So.
It's mostly the videos that you've created. It's like a massive compounding effect. Yeah. I mean, at the start of the year, I got monetized late last year, and it was like $100 a month, $200 a month.
So the amount of effort you put
in. The amount of effort is equal basically to what I do now, maybe a little bit more now because the production quality goes up naturally. You put more effort into it, but
it's all that you do now.
That's
like what you
thing.
do.
Yeah, not juggling uni, work.
Yeah, work and this. Yeah, it's just like this is your life now.
Which
is pretty cool.
It is. Whenever I reflect on it, it's pretty. It is pretty surreal. That's the word I was looking for. It's just, I would not have thought that I would be doing this 2 years ago today.
Yeah, me neither.
Even a year ago, I was making YouTube videos pretty regularly because I like to do it, but making zero money, less than 1,000 subscribers. So no one really gave.
No.
But
no one really gave a beep.
Yeah, exactly. Insert beep.
Insert beep here.
But no, it's whenever you look a year or two back, it's actually mind blowing.
I'm going to bring this up now. This is one of the questions that we had. I just got to find it. Oh, I can't find it now, but it was something along the lines of, here you go. Yeah. It was something along the lines of, what do you guys see yourselves doing in 5 to 10 years? Or actually, that's not the right one. The other one was, if you rewound the clock, say 5 years or 10 years, probably more applicable for us, maybe 5 years, because otherwise we're going back.
I'm still in diapers now.
Well, how old are you 10 years ago?
11.
11. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was 14.
14.
So
yeah.
I don't think we were thinking about too much back then. But what would you have imagined you'd be up to if you rewound the clock 5 years?
5 years.
And
so
tried to put yourself back then and think out into the future. What did you imagine that you'd be doing?
5 years, I would have been 16. I would have imagined, I was into business, but I would have imagined, this might be really fascinating, but I never even knew that starting a business was something you could do. Like, really? I just thought that it was, I don't know, I just thought that businesses were like family run and like you just, you had to be in a family that already had a business and you work for it and then you work your way up or something like that. So I was into business, but I just imagined I'd be in some corporate job.
Yeah.
I started a business when I was 14 selling hats to kids at school.
Oh, man.
It was fascinating. I ripped the idea, kind of like how I ripped YouTube off you as well. But I
you didn't rip YouTube off me.
No, I did.
You don't say that.
But this kid showed me this website where you could like wholesale buy hats, and I don't know, everyone was into hats for some reason. I don't know. I wasn't, but
everyone else was.
I was into money. So
that's it. Yeah, that's the only thing you got to be into.
So I said to him, I said, pick out a few that you want and I'll get some other people. I'll wholesale them because you could only buy them in bulk, and I'll do it. And I did maybe 5-6 shipments, probably a fair few, probably close to 100 hats. Sounds like, I mean,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You got to think about like as a 14-year-old.
Yeah. Like it was probably $400, $500, $600. It's probably $500, $600.
That's great.
In a year, which is a lot.
That's a lot for a 16-year-old. Yeah.
And
what the hell?
If only I'd continued doing that, I'd be running Culture Kings. I'd be.
It's like, if only I hadn't sold my brand to Nike.
Yeah. For only $20 million.
If only I'd held on to it. No, that's funny.
So where would you be? Where would you have thought you would have been 5 years ago?
Well, 5 years ago, I was 19. So I would have finished year 12, I think. No, I would have been like I would have finished year 12. I would have been in uni. Yeah. So people always ask me, I haven't really spoken about it on the channel before, but I studied physiotherapy and I'm a qualified physio, and I'm actually finishing up doing my work in physiotherapy to focus more on my YouTube channel, and I'm starting my own business and that sort of stuff. But all of that will be revealed soon, I'm sure. So at that stage, to be honest, I didn't know. I hadn't even really thought about investing at all. I hadn't thought about business at all. I was just like, okay, people go to school and then they go to uni and then they get a job and then they work until they're 65 and then they retire. And that was just literally I was just like, it's the classic brainwash that everyone seems to believe. And then it wasn't until maybe I was 20, 21, even 22. Well, I started my channel, I think, when I was 22 or 20. I would have just turned 22. So it was before then that I got switched on to all this investing stuff, which far out. I'm glad I did start learning about it because I finished uni. Basically, I finished uni and I started working and I was like, okay, I like doing what I'm doing, but I realized that there's actually not too much career progression for a physio to start earning the bigger bucks that help you get towards financial freedom and that sort of stuff. I mean, the salaries can kind of go maybe up to about $90,000 unless you're a business owner. But any of the salaries for physios that are above, say, $90,000 or $100,000, you're not even being a physio anymore. You're sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
You're writing policies, or you're working for health. You're working for the public service or something like that. I was like, shit, I don't want to do that. Like, that sounds terrible. Like, just sitting at a desk all day, communicating to people via email, just like locked in an office and tapping away on a keyboard. It's just like, that's boring.
Yeah.
So I realized that, and that's when I started thinking like, okay, if I want to be a physio and maybe I'm only earning $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, maybe 90 at best, I better find a way where I can turn my money into more money and start to snowball it. And that's when I was like, investing. I start talking about investing, made the mistake, start the YouTube channel, and the rest is history. But yeah, back 5 years ago, that's like, none of this stuff would have been in my brain.
Yeah.
I would have been like all physio, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Looking back, it seems so odd that I never really understood that people actually started businesses at age 20, early 20s. Like, it seems like I tell people this and they think, and they just tell me, look, why didn't you know that?
Yeah.
And I look back and I actually don't know why I didn't know that. I really didn't think about.
Well, you mustn't have been. I mean, you get born with no knowledge, so it just must have meant that no one's taught you yet.
Yeah.
But where do you go to learn that stuff? You wouldn't learn that stuff until you're in uni, really.
Yeah.
Like none of the maybe if you did a year 12 or year 11 business course or something, but.
That I wish someone had exposed me to that when I was 16, 17 and just said like, hey, this is what people are doing now. But even no one really spoke about it either. Like,
true.
No one was like looking
It's
at
so
YouTubers
rare.
and no one was looking at people on YouTube or making online businesses and being like, oh, there's a lot of money there. Like even like 5 years ago, there was really a lot of this stuff is really new. Like a lot of this digital marketing and online businesses, like a lot of it is, I mean, last 10 years, but a lot of it has really come in the last 5 years, I think.
I was talking to my friend who I'm working with at the moment. He's a web developer. And he was saying he reckons we're kind of in kind of like the internet age. He thinks that we're out of the infancy. We're kind of in the middle stage of the internet. Right. So that like he was saying like kind of 1990s, 2000s, that was kind of infancy. Like the internet was so new that people really hadn't figured out how effectively it can work. And then now we're kind of in the last 10 years or so, we've realized, I think it was really the trigger for this was something like the Google search and Google advertising and AdWords and that sort of stuff. People realizing just how powerful the internet was as a sales channel and that sort of, and for like increasing your business and marketing and that sort of stuff. And he reckons that we're at a stage where we're really starting to understand how powerful it can be. Unfortunately, to a point where, like anything, the growth and the effectiveness kind of slows down. What's that thing that I'm trying to think of? Law of diminishing returns.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking of.
It's just slowly getting more and more competitive because more people with more money that are already established in business are getting switched onto it. When it's right in its infancy, it's really an even playing field. Anyone with pretty much the lowest budget can get a business up and running, and then slowly it just gets more and more competitive as people with a lot of money finally get switched on to the fact that there's a lot of money to be made in developing something like this. I mean, you think about many established businesses, a lot of them are still not capitalizing on the internet. And
true.
I mean, I just popped into my head something like McDonald's, like only in the last couple of years have they been capitalizing on mobile ordering and like it's fascinating. It's still so early for businesses like that. And I mean, it's just going to continue to get more and more competitive, and it's going to continue to get better and better for consumers, which is good. That's the best thing that comes out of technological advancement is how much better it gets for consumers and how much cheaper things get for consumers.
And better, more efficiency, all of that sort of stuff. It's just great efficiency. I mean, I think even Facebook is talking about they're trying to build in a payment system within Instagram, because what they've found is getting popular is people clicking on ads to buy things on Instagram. They're finding that seems to be a good, effective method. So I think they're working on an inbuilt payment system for Instagram. So if you saw an ad for, I don't know, Hamish's sunglasses or Hamish's hats or whatever it was.
Exactly. It might pop up again, guys.
You could have that ad there, and then people would look at your selection, buy, and it wouldn't take you to an external site. It'd just be there on Instagram. You'd pay through Instagram or whatever. And I think that's going to be a bit revolutionary if Facebook gets on top of this on top of this cryptocurrency platform that they're working on, whatever it's called, Libra. I think that's actually a partnership. I think there are multiple. I don't really know too much about this. I haven't looked into it very much at all, but I think multiple businesses are actually working on the Libra platform. It's not just Facebook.
Yeah, there's a bunch of businesses who are all committing to use it together.
That's right.
I mean, it's just all about Facebook's just trying to remove barriers to the sale, the point of sale. And the internet obviously removed a huge barrier. You don't have to go to the store.
Yeah, exactly right.
You just sit back and you order it. And then the next barrier is the little barriers in between clicking on the Instagram ad and typing in your details, typing in your address and typing in your credit card number. If that barrier is gone and you can just click, boom, buy.
Yeah.
And then it appears at your house tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's just another huge advantage, huge cost advantage for both parties, Facebook and the business that's selling the products.
So looking back to our podcast structure, we've kind of had a chat about how we got started on YouTube. How do we start getting to know each other? I can't. When did we first reach out and hit each other up?
This is an interesting story. So so it would have been, I can't remember exactly when it was, but you made a Q&A video, and you got people to on Twitter reach out to you and ask a question. And I asked a question. And you used it in your video, and I was so excited. I was like, yes.
Get around us.
I was like, yes, I'm famous.
Famous. I've appeared on this Aussie finance YouTuber's video.
Yeah.
And
400
he
subscribers.
has 400 subscribers. Oh, I got to start somewhere.
Yeah, but I did that, and then.
Do you remember the question? What the question was that you asked?
It was something. It was something stupid about ComSec or Commonwealth Bank. I don't know. Some stupid question.
Something you look back now with how much knowledge you've got, and you're like, it's a noob question.
Yeah, exactly. No, and then I remember you had a Snapchat. You started with a Snapchat.
I'm glad I stopped doing that.
Stop doing it?
I still get people adding me all the time, but I don't even log on. So if you follow me on Snapchat, I'm sorry, but go to Instagram, because I am active on Instagram. So Instagram, I find it a much better platform.
It's way better.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. Much more than Snapchat. So don't bother on Snapchat anymore. If you got a question or something, that's the other thing I should mention. If you follow me on Instagram, you've hit me up with a direct message or whatever they call it on Instagram. I've been really bad at answering those, but I'm going to try and get better now that I've got, hopefully in the next month or two, I'll start having more time to do this sort of stuff. So yeah, anyway, what were we talking about?
Yeah, so Snapchat. So you had a Snapchat. I was the first one.
Yeah.
I remember, because you sent me like a selfie Snapchat. You're the first.
Oh, that's mad.
And then we'll just, every now and then we would chat. He wouldn't reply to me most of the time. So I'm just kidding.
Well, I probably didn't.
He was too cool to reply to. But every now and then I'd just be like, oh, how you going? And I was just really fascinated, because as I said, I was looking for an outlet. Right. And I had nobody. There was nobody at school. I'd try to talk about it at school, and I'd just get called the finance nerd. Yeah. Like I had nobody.
No one cares.
Yeah. So no, it was good. It was a bit of an outlet, and then you kind of encouraged me. I said, oh, maybe I should do this, and then you're like, yes, do it.
Yeah. I still say that to people that reach out to me today and say, oh, I'm thinking about starting a YouTube channel. I'm like, what do you got to lose?
Yeah.
It's just going to cost you time. It's not going to cost you money.
Yeah.
It's a free platform. Just do it.
Yeah. There's no reason not to. And yeah, I mean, I think everyone does this, but like made like a few videos and just never uploaded them because they were just awful.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if people
You get a bit self-conscious. You get a bit nervous.
Man, that first one was so hard to put out. I remember it distinctly. I was like hovering.
What did you talk about in your first one?
Probably like I talked about Phil Towns' 4 steps.
Oh, right.
So it was, I don't know. I had a little bit of a plan. I said I was going to do this video, and then in that video I basically said, over the next few videos I'm going to break down each component. And that's basically what I did. I did one on economic moats. Nice. I did one on return on invested capital.
Yeah.
And that's where I went for like the next 10 videos basically.
Yeah.
And
nice.
I mean,
we've come a long way.
Yeah.
So that's how we got started. How do we kind of jumped into the podcast probably. In hindsight, I actually reckon, because we kind of had our idea. We'd only spoken to each other on the phone once. Before we started the podcast. Yeah. Because we were kind of just like, we're talking to each other. We're like, yep, let's do it. And then we just did it. So much so, I kind of reckon in hindsight, we probably should have put a bit more effort into launching it properly. Because there was the funny thing, do you know the story I'm going to talk about right now?
No, I think so.
Yeah. The funny thing is that when we started out, we didn't really do too much research. We just thought we wanted to do an investing podcast. We did a lot of research into the content of the podcast, but we didn't really know what podcasts were out there. We didn't know anything like that. So we started this podcast, and originally this podcast was not called the Young Investors Podcast. We thought it would be a really smart idea because we both follow Buffett and Munger, like value investing, and started originally by Benjamin Graham, who of course wrote The Intelligent Investor. So we thought it would be a quirky, fun little name to call it The Intelligent Investing Podcast.
Great idea.
That is I think it's a great name, to be honest.
Yeah.
However, we should have, I don't know why we didn't. Like, that's so silly. But we didn't look it up.
We created a Gmail account with the Intelligent Investing Podcast.
We thought we got it. We were like, yep, sweet, lock it in. And to be honest, when we recorded the first podcast, the first 20 seconds of that podcast, I introduced this as the Intelligent Investing Podcast. But before I released the first podcast, I went on, and turns out there is already an Intelligent Investing Podcast. I don't follow them, so I don't know if they're still active or anything like that. So we realized that we couldn't call it the Intelligent Investing Podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
But we'd already recorded it. So at the start, I actually didn't refer to it as the Intelligent Investing Podcast after that, I don't think. It was just the start. So the actual first 20 seconds of that podcast is not me talking to you. It's cut out, and it's me re-recording the opening to the podcast, talking to my living room.
Yeah.
No one there.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And if there's anybody who's just on the fence about starting anything online, this is the best example of how unprepared we were.
Yeah.
And we've done pretty well. We've done pretty well.
Yeah. Up to over 10,000 monthly
Don't worry
viewers.
about making stupid mistakes. We've made every stupid mistake in our YouTube and in the podcast.
Just don't make a stupid mistake that'll actually get you into trouble
Yeah.
or sued.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't give out financial advice, and don't take someone else's name. That if you want to start in this space, that's the two biggest things that I would point. But it was fun. And we've been doing it almost every week.
Pretty consistently.
Pretty consistently. Yeah, so it's we've had a lot of guests on too. We need to get back into getting more guests on.
Definitely. Yeah.
But we got a few lined up. We just have to actually record the podcast and get a time and all that. But we're going to get Gally back on from Hyperchange.
Definitely. Yeah.
Have we got anyone else coming up?
We did have one coming up. I don't think we can talk about it yet.
We can't talk about it yet. That's okay.
But we've got one in the works.
We're still waiting for Phil Town.
Phil's in 3 weeks.
Phil, I wish. Yeah.
We'll get him. We will get him.
We'll get him eventually. I will get him on this podcast if it is the last thing I do.
I've read, what's that book? What's the mindset book?
I don't know.
Like imagine it and it will happen.
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich. I've read Think and Grow Rich, so I'm gonna
every night I sit down and I think about having Phil on the podcast.
I do my affirmations.
Yeah.
Phil will be on the next podcast.
My visualizations. Phil, I'm connecting with you right now. You will come on the Young Investors podcast. we were close to doing something with him, but
we were.
It just didn't work out because we'd have to travel to the US, and even then we couldn't actually lock in a time where we could sit down with him and record any sort of, because I think he's a very busy man. But eventually.
If you're watching this,
reach out.
Please.
Yeah.
We will come to you. We'll do whatever it takes.
This is the begging part of the podcast. This is the begging part. Phil, if you're out there, we have both read every single one of your books. Actually, I tell you what, we've probably sold a fair few copies of his books from recommending.
I've spoken to a lot of people who have either read his book or I've recommended them to read his book. So, Phil,
you owe us. No.
It's not coming on anymore. He's watching this who are these jokers?
Who are these guys? No. Oh, these fine Aussie lads. That's what he's thinking about. No. But we'd be super keen. But maybe in the future. We'll see. See what happens. I think that'd be like up there with one of the highest goals that we've got for the podcast.
Definitely.
To get Phil on here.
It's probably our top goal for like what we can see now.
Realistically. I mean, the only person that could eclipse it is maybe Warren Buffett.
Exactly.
I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think getting Phil is probably a really big goal that we could hit. Yeah. I think that's why it's such a good goal, because if we said Warren Buffett, I mean,
it's never going to happen. So unlikely.
We have a better chance of winning the lottery. Whereas
Yeah.
when it comes to Phil, it's actually something that could possibly happen.
Yeah.
And it will happen. Because I've visualized it. So.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Anyway, if you want Phil on the podcast, we got to get this message to him. So reach out to him on social media or something and tell him, let him know respectfully, let him know that he should come on the Young Investors podcast. We'd love to have a chat to him. Phil, if you're listening, we'd love to have a chat. Anyway, moving on. So that's kind of our story of the Young Investors, the Intelligent Investing podcast, the Young Investors podcast.
Yeah.
And it slowly morphed over time into a podcast relating to nothing but the weather and Tesla.
Yeah.
It's basically what it is now. Hey, speaking of Tesla, I saw my first Model 3 yesterday.
Well done.
And I was pumped. Yes, all right, confirmation bias, whatever. Yes, you're a fanboy. Yes, whatever. I was so pumped. I was sitting on the Murray's bus or the Greyhound bus, Canberra to Sydney, and was stopped at some stoplights, and there it is. They're still so rare, the Model 3s in Australia.
They are.
Yep, but I saw one sitting there, and because I've seen so many photos of it, I knew exactly what I was looking at. I didn't even, it was like probably maybe 50, 75 meters away. No, probably 50 meters away. I knew exactly what I was looking at. I only caught the front end, and then it came around the bend and went past. I was like, Model 3.
I went on their website and went through the motions of sort of going to buy one. Obviously, I'm not going to buy one, but just it's fun to do it anyway because you get to customize it. And it said the delivery time was November. Now, is that BS? Would that actually happen? Because I have seen so little of them. Yeah, I just don't know if there must be a huge waiting list, surely.
Yeah, the thing with Tesla is that they've only just started Model 3 deliveries this literally in the last 3 weeks. So Model 3s have only been in Australia in the last 3 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
So they started taking orders 2 months ago. So I think if you wanted to put in an order for a Model 3, I think it'd take about 2 months for it to get to us. Because they're all made in the US, in Fremont, and then they're shipped over. But I think they've figured out their logistics when it comes to how they're going to keep manufacturing the different versions of the car for the different geographical locations like Europe or China or US or Australia or wherever. So I think now there's never going to be a huge demand for Teslas here just because they don't advertise. Like it's not like Australia is low on their priorities. Like we don't have huge amounts of superchargers, that sort of stuff. We've only got one. Is there a Tesla store in Melbourne? I don't.
Yes, there is. There's one in Eastland. I want to say Eastland, maybe Chadstone. I'm not sure which one it's in.
And there's one here, and then there's a service center here. So Elon was saying in their last call that basically the things that drive sales from what they can see geographically is the place where there's service locations and where there's a good supercharger network. Right. So that people know that they can go and they can charge their car. Yeah, they're not limited by that. And they can also, if something happens, they go get a service. Like he was saying that shoppers are actually pretty smart. They check these things before they buy. So they say their sales are strongest where they've got great service locations and a good network.
That's the thing. Yeah, we don't have a lot of supercharger locations, do we? We have some.
All down the East Coast. So you can go Brisbane, all the way down through Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne, and across to Adelaide. But I don't think you can make it from Adelaide to Perth. There is one in Perth, but you can't get out of Perth through the supercharger network. And there's none in Tasmania yet. So you can go definitely East Coast and around the bottom to Adelaide, all the way through Brisbane. But they're not they're rare. They're rare. They're not popping up everywhere. They're not like petrol stations or anything like that.
Yeah.
No. And they really in Australia, they're really just designed for long distance travel, like just to keep you going along your path. Like you can see the path down from Brisbane to Melbourne to Adelaide, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, the range is good. If you get the long range, it's what is it? I don't know exactly.
500 kilometers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good.
It's good. And for most people, you wouldn't even for most people, they use a car to get around the city or to and from work, that sort of stuff. So that's the biggest thing. One of the barriers with Teslas is people just don't, they feel like they can't go anywhere in it because this network is not so extensive. But I think for 99% of use of your car, people forget that you don't need to go to a petrol station ever. You get home, you plug it in. It's like in your garage. It's like having a petrol station at your house.
Yeah.
I mean, for most people, they forget that. Like, they say, oh, it's not convenient because I can't charge it here or there. It's like, well, it actually is convenient because you've got a charger in your garage.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quick.
It's not.
I mean, do you know the charging rates?
No, I don't know the charging rates. It's slow. It's slow in your garage, and you do need an electrician to come fit a special Tesla charger. If you just plug it into the standard, it's like 3 kilometers an hour or something like that. Awful. It's terrible.
But yeah, you're right. If you're plugging it in every day and you've got 500 kilometers of range and maybe a day, if you're not driving that much and you're driving a little bit, 10, 20 kilometers maybe, like that's quite a lot anyway, and then plugging it back in, that's going to charge back up to full within half a day. So overnight, unless you're doing a lot of driving, you really don't need the superchargers, I don't think. I think you could get away with the fitted Tesla,
the wall charger for your home. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, I'm not a huge car person, but I'm more. I like cars, but I don't know anything about engines, and I don't know anything about electric cars. But I'm into like luxury cars.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's.
I think that's just something that every boy's like.
Maybe that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. I don't know anything about ICE vehicles. I don't know how engines work.
Yeah.
I open the bonnet and go, cool.
Yeah.
But electric vehicles I know a little bit more about, but mainly it's just Tesla. I'm just a Tesla fan. I just really like what the company does and the mission that they stand for. But you can imagine how pumped I was when I almost stood up out of my seat sitting on the bus there. Just like, there it is.
Everybody look.
I've seen a Model 3 in the flesh because they're just so rare in Australia. I'm sure we'll get to a stage in Australia where they're like, Model 3, there you go. That's not rare.
Yeah.
But it'll be like a Camry or something. But for the time being, anyway, it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
I haven't seen one today, though. I've been on the lookout, too. I've been watching the streets. Yeah. I want to find one. I want to go talk to a Tesla owner.
Yeah.
I've even got my merch on today. In fact, to be honest, when I go out, I like wearing the Tesla merch because occasionally someone will come up that is a Tesla owner.
Really?
Yeah, and they'll say, hey, do you own a Tesla? To which I'll say, no, but you do.
Yeah. No,
that's happened to me twice in public where someone said, oh, do you like Tesla? I'm like, yeah, boy. Yeah, I like Tesla. And it's like, yeah, you see that Model S over there? That's mine. I'm like, ooh.
This is my biggest regret.
Yeah.
Not buying one of Musk's flamethrowers.
Like, yeah, true.
I wish I had.
Oh, that's so cool.
Because there was 20,000 and they're all gone now. They are awesome. And maybe I'll still buy one off eBay. I might do it. Just because it's an awesome prop.
And to be honest, you could, it's an awesome prop, but you could have it as an investment. I mean, you think about if you kept that baby in the box,
that's a good
held
point.
It for like 10 years. It's a limited run. Elon Musk, there's so much hype around him.
Not 10, hold it for, buy and hold it for 100 years. Just think about this. He'll be up there with,
he'll go down in history.
He'll go down in history as someone like Edison.
Yeah.
He'll go down in history.
He will, definitely.
And if you're holding something where there was only 20,000 of them, a lot of them will disappear.
Yeah. They'll get used. They'll break.
That's a good point. Never thought about that. I'm going to go and buy one.
You could literally just chuck it in your attic, in a nice box so it doesn't get damaged.
Yeah.
Give it to your grandchildren or something.
Yeah.
Because if they only made, 10,000 of them or something, or 20,000 of them or whatever. I mean, as time goes on, they only get rarer as more and more get lost or break or get used or whatever.
Yeah, and as long as there's hype around Elon Musk, which I can't imagine there being no hype around him.
Well, to be honest, even if he carked it and that was it for him, I hope that doesn't happen. But even if he died tomorrow, 50 years, he's made such an impact already. He'll definitely he'll go down in history as one of the great names for sure. There's no way he wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
you're
I hope you don't cark it, Elon.
Yeah, we're not hoping for that.
Humanity kind of relies on you a little bit at this stage, I think.
I really want to go to Mars, so.
Yeah, I want to go to Mars. That'd be sick. That'd be so cool. Take a day trip to Mars or a 12-month round trip to Mars.
Is that how long it takes?
Well,
that's honestly not as bad.
Yeah, I think the orbits, because they're on slightly different orbits. Just knocked my mic. But I think there's a window of opportunity where the trip only takes 6 months. But if you go at a different time, it takes heaps longer. So, But yeah, that's pretty cool. Anyway, enough Elon talk and Tesla talk. I'm surprised that people put up with us talking about Tesla.
I
Well, it's
know.
really just me. It's really just me. I always bring it up. I'm always the guy that starts to talk about it.
Don't put that on me as well. I never bring it up. No, I do.
You do. Sometimes.
I really like
You
the
bring it
company.
up, and then I'm like, "Oh, Hamish, I hope you've got another hour to sit
Yeah.
through me just blah 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 blah." It's always the way it happens. Do you want to start talking about some Q&A questions
Yes.
that people have sent us?
Shall I see what we got?
Yeah, sure.
So one of the interesting ones that I got. So
Yeah.
we put out a thing on Instagram. Thanks everyone who gave us questions on Instagram. One of the interesting ones was Michael Burry and someone wanted to talk about his prediction that index funds are in some kind of bubble.
Right. So what's the thinking with this? Is the thinking that because everyday investors have been so switched on over the last, say, 10 years to this concept of ETFs, because actually ETFs haven't been around for too long. They've only been around for like 15, 20 years as a concept. So it's the idea that over time people have realized that the markets go up over time, and ETFs are such a simple way to get into the markets diversified that just like a crap load of money has been funneled into them, so much so that they're like artificially inflating the prices of companies underlying. Like, what do you know more about what he's thinking?
So like, if we go back to the housing bubble back in 2008, and if you go watch The Big Short, it's a fantastic explanation of what's happened there. But basically, people felt as though housing was so solid, it had always gone up, and the returns were starting to get very high to the point where people thought there was no way they could lose money. That it was a win-win situation.
Yeah.
And there was no way they could lose. And Michael Burry sees the same thing in index funds. And I definitely appreciate the perspective, because there's a lot of people in finance, us included, guilty of this, of just saying that index fund historically go up at 6 to 10%.
Yeah.
So it's the safest way to invest. And there could be this thing where a lot of people are just buying index funds because they think that return is certain.
Yeah.
When you're buying the index, you're basically buying a bunch of stocks without considering their actual underlying profits.
Yeah.
So
True.
it's
I would say most people buying index funds, they don't even look at all. They don't even consider what companies are even in them for the most part.
Yeah.
They just trust in something like the S&P 500 or the ASX 200 or something.
Yeah. And I encourage people to go out and find what Michael Burry has said in detail about this, because it goes a lot deeper than what I just explained. It goes a lot deeper than that. There's a lot of intricacies in relation to derivatives and how index funds are formed and what happens when people buy and sell index funds.
Right.
That is adding to this bubble effect that Burry thinks. But yeah, it's certainly interesting. Whenever you have something like that where people are investing because it's going up and they're not considering the actual value of what's happening, it's the same thing as what happened with Bitcoin. People were just seeing it go up and they thought that it was a certainty that this was where the future of currency was going to go now.
Yeah.
And people were just buying into it. You had people who had no business investing in the stock market. You had people in high school who just basically just wanted to gamble on it, and just assumed that they were going to make a lot of money. And they all got burned really badly,
basically.
except for maybe a few people who were lucky enough to time the market and get out near the top.
Right. Okay. What do you reckon?
I can see it. I mean, the thing with bubbles is that it's so hard. Like, you can see it forming, but you don't know when it's going to pop. I mean, I was saying for a long time that Bitcoin was a bubble, and I think everyone saw it, but no one knew when the cascade was going to topple. And it was the same thing with the housing bubble. I mean, people were calling for that for years. People were saying that this is a bubble. There's a lot of really poor loans, really bad, dodgy loans that are going out to people who don't have income. But for a long time, it just continued to churn on. Yeah. And it continued to go up. So with these kinds of things, I like to observe them, but that's about it. Like, I like to have a look.
Don't buy into it.
But I'm not going to be, I don't really take a position either way. I just like to see what happens.
Yeah. We just stick to our strategy instead. Don't mess around with things that are overhyped or potential bubbles or anything like that.
Yeah.
Just watch it. Learn from it, I guess.
Yeah, and it doesn't really affect me for the most part. I have a little bit of money in an index fund, but for the most part, my money's in individual businesses where I've done the thorough analysis to work out what conservatively am I going to get out of this? And therefore, like, I know that the price that I've paid is going to give me a satisfactory return.
Yeah.
And if you do that kind of analysis, then you protect yourself from bubbles.
Yeah.
You take Bitcoin, for example. If I wanted to look at it and it was going up a lot and I wanted to see if it was a good investment, I have to compare what am I going to get back from it to what I'm paying. And can I objectively measure what I'm going to get out of Bitcoin? And you couldn't. You could not measure what you're going to get out of it. Therefore, you couldn't invest in it. And just having that simple philosophy protects you from about 99% of bad investments.
Pretty much. You're not wrong. Yeah, if you're a Bitcoin investor and somebody literally seriously asks you, where's your investment likely going to be in 5 to 10 years?
Give me a ballpark.
Yeah.
Give me a conservative estimate of where it's going to be. And there's no way to measure it.
And explain why.
And explain why.
Yeah. Then people they'd probably say, oh, Bitcoin's going to be at $1 million.
Yeah.
Why?
And no one here, we're not saying that these things can't go up. We're not betting against them. I think that's something that people get wrong with what we talk about sometimes. We're not betting that it's going to go down. We're just saying it's too uncertain.
Yeah.
To put our money in it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Rule number 1.
Yeah.
Don't lose money. So don't invest in anything that's that's very uncertain. Invest in things that are close to certain.
Yeah.
And
pretty much. And those, I think the problem is that humans think very short term. Very short term. I think it's just wired into us.
Yeah.
So people feel as though it's fear of missing out. Yeah. If you're in a high market, even a lot of people that follow my channel, probably your channel as well, have felt the fear of missing out and have bought into this market, even though from all kind of things that we look at, most would agree that the market's probably pretty damn high, overvalued. And I think the thing to realize is that when stock markets move, they don't move over, say, like 1 or 2 years. Well, of course, they move over 1 or 2 years, but really the trends that you see are more like 5, 10 years. So even now I'm seeing people that have bought into this overvalued market on the fear of missing out, when really Buffett and everyone says that these great opportunities, like the really good opportunities where what Phil Town says, you want to load up the truck and just like buy, like everything you can. They happen so incredibly infrequently.
Yeah, and one thing that I find really fascinating is as humans, we kind of think our memory is better than it actually is. Our memory is so much stronger in the short term than it is long term. Like the longer term you look out, the weaker your memory is.
Yeah.
And then we like to think, and the result of that is really we weigh short term events so much heavier than things that have happened in the past. I mean, you think about the financial crisis. It was 10 years ago or so, 11 years ago. And a lot of people have forgotten.
Yeah,
that's
markets have recovered.
I don't know.
Plus some.
I don't know if this is just a thing I'm sure it's not a thing on my channel, but there's a lot of people saying we can't have a crash anymore.
Yeah,
and it's amazing because people warned, like when you watch footage about the 2008 crash, there's people saying the same thing, and I was like, there's no way anyone's stupid enough to think that like there couldn't ever be another crash.
Yeah.
But you see the comments, like people really do forget, and it's amazing how short term people really think.
It's only 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Yeah, it's pretty nuts. And you're right, it's so short term. At the time, everyone's like, seems like the sun's not going to rise tomorrow kind of thing, but of course it does. And you give it 10 years and look at where we are in the markets now compared to where we were in the depths of 2008. It wasn't it? Yeah. 2008, 2009.
There's some horrible things that have happened globally that you would have thought in the midst of that the world is ending. I mean, multiple world wars, many trade wars, many cold wars, conflicts between different countries.
Yeah.
The production just continues to increase. Spending continues to increase. Innovation continues to increase. And businesses make more money.
That's it. It's pretty...
But people forget.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. So yeah, we just got to wait for those times where you do get given those great opportunities, and then when you get given an opportunity, you got to take it. That's the main thing. Do you want to move on to the next question?
Yes.
What else we got? I'll try and bring one up. Here's an interesting one. So this is submitted by someone who says that they've saved up an emergency fund, which we're both big advocates for. We like emergency funds, but they've saved up $20,000 for their emergency fund. So if that was you, not saying we're giving this person advice, but if that was you in that situation, what would you be thinking about? Because obviously everyone's situation is different. For me, I like emergency funds to be like 3 months worth of expenses, so that if shit hit the fan, you'd be fine. But so for someone living a very complex, high expense life, maybe 20 grand is 3 months of expenses.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
But for you, if you had this amount, like, what would you do with it? Because I think most people, if they had an emergency fund of 20 grand, maybe they like that feeling really certain, like really sure that they'd be fine no matter what. But for me, I think that might be too much.
I think everyone has a different level at which they feel comfortable of how much cash they just have available that you can use in an emergency. For me, it's between 3 and 6 months. If I ever have 6 months, I feel really comfortable because it means that if everything went terrible, lost the YouTube channel, business just went completely terribly, I'd still be okay for quite a while, and I'd have many opportunities in the next half year to get myself back on my feet and get something going. In terms of what I would do if I had excess, I would invest it. It's tricky when everything's quite expensive, but
if you had the right opportunities, you'd invest it.
Exactly. That's the main thing. Look for the opportunities, and if you do a thorough analysis, you can get a ballpark of conservatively what return you can make at the current price. And just because it's expensive, it doesn't mean you're going to make a zero return on every stock. Some stocks might just be offering 6% instead of 12%. Conservatively. And if you have a lot of cash lying around, sometimes 6% isn't bad. 6% is not bad over the long term.
It's better than 2%. Savings account.
It's constantly, with our strategy, it's a constant balance between making sure we're always invested in the market and always making a return over the long term, because cash makes nothing, makes maybe 2%, and then inflation erases that. But it's a balance between that and having cash available for when there's really good opportunities, which we really haven't seen a really good opportunity in a long time. Ever since we started investing, we haven't seen a gold mine opportunity.
Not in 10 years, really, realistically.
It's been a long time.
And in 10 years ago, we weren't even investing. we were how old? 14 and 11.
11 years old. I was investing.
You were investing? You're investing in your business selling hats. In Hamish's hat company.
What did I call it?
You could call it Triple H. Hamish Hodder hats.
No, it had a much worse name than that. It was something like $17 hats. $17 snapbacks or something.
Like take like Supreme, but it's like Supreme or something. But I think I'd agree with you on the emergency fund thing. For me, $20,000 as an emergency fund is just like, it's too much for me. Like that money could be put to use. Because emergency fund, I don't know what you do with yours, but I sit it in a bank account and I don't touch it, because I want the emergency fund literally to always be there no matter what. So like I think I've got like 10,000 in my emergency fund, and I just sit that there in a bank, and I'm never going to touch it unless I desperately need to. Which, it might seem like it's a bit of a waste of money, because you probably look at statistically, it's unlikely that I'll need that amount potentially ever, but I still want to be covered. It's like insurance.
It's really interesting that you brought that exact point up, because I was just on the plane over. I was listening to. I've been listening to Principles by Ray Dalio.
Oh, cool.
And one of the points he hit on was balancing risk taking, basically.
Right.
And he talks about one example, such as if you have symptoms of getting cancer. This is the example he uses. The chance that you actually have cancer is really low, but getting checked anyway makes sense. And that's kind of the purpose of the emergency fund, is the chance that you're going to need to use it is probably pretty low, but you want it there in case it happens. And it's a good example. It's interesting that you brought up, because that's exactly what he spoke about. And another thing he basically spoke about was never sneeze at the chance to increase the probability that you're going to win. So and that applies massively to investing. If there's a question you've asked but you haven't thought about, and you haven't dug deep, and you haven't really got to the bottom of a particular question about a business, then by digging deep into that, you can increase the probability that you're going to be right and that you're not going to make a stupid mistake.
That's what you want to do. Comes back to understanding the business, eh?
Yeah. Awesome book, by the way. I'm almost through it, and it's a very good book.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first part, he talks a lot about his investing journey.
Yeah.
Kind of just how he started Bridgewater, the investment hedge fund. And then for the most part, it's about life principles. It's just about ways to live your life. I kind of like
books like that, yeah, as opposed to just like stock market, like relating it back to just like life in general and stuff. That's good. Well, what would you say, what would you say it's like a beginner, intermediate, advanced? Should someone that's just getting started in investing read it, or is it like The Intelligent Investor where you...
No, it's not like The Intelligent Investor. It's... it's pretty... I think pretty much anyone could read it. Yeah.
Get something
some of the principles are just like having radical truthfulness and being honest with yourself, and like what are the ways that you can rationalize things in your head, and it's really just the principles that Ray Dalio used his entire life in order to, in investing, but also just building his business and in his personal life and dealing with certain problems, such as his son had bipolar disease. And yeah, it's a fascinating book and it's really good. And the audiobook is read by Ray Dalio, and his voice is awesome. So.
Oh yeah, true. So, that would be good. Is it a long book or?
It's really long. The audiobook's 17 hours.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Man,
sit back and relax.
Imagine having to record your own audio book.
Yeah.
That would be hard.
It's tedious.
It'd be hard.
Yeah.
Because imagine how many times you'd read a sentence, make a mistake, have to edit it and start again. It'd be hard, much harder than like what we're doing, just like free flowing off the cuff, just having a chat.
Oh, definitely.
You'd have to like read your book. Shit, I didn't put the right emphasis on that word. Start again. Yeah.
No, 100%.
Unless you'd be really experienced. All right.
Speaking of.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you.
Oh, okay.
So you had a question here. If you could have dinner with 3 people.
Oh, yeah.
From any time in history.
I was going to think about this one, and then I didn't think about it.
I haven't thought about it either. Let's just run off some names of some people. We don't have to pick a top 3. Let's just...
Okay. Guess my number 1.
Elon Musk.
Yes.
Guess my number 1. That's tough, actually. I'm not sure if it's obvious.
I want to just say Warren Buffett, but it is.
I think Warren Buffett.
My top 2 would be Warren Buffett and Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I would much prefer... I like the way that Elon thinks. Like, I like the way that Buffett thinks, but I resonate... Like, the things that I think about are the same things that Elon kind of does with his businesses. Like, I think about sustainability and renewable energy, and I like electric cars, and I love Tesla and blah, blah, blah. And I like... I always had an interest in astronomy and that sort of stuff, but I'd never really looked into rockets and that sort of stuff until SpaceX came along. Now I follow like NASA and the rockets and mission to Mars, and I'm really interested in that sort of stuff. So I think I'd get the most if I had a sit down dinner and I could just talk to him. I feel like I'd get the most personally out of talking to Elon. But if you wanted to like learn how to be an epic investor, then you'd sit down with Buffett every day of the week. Was it Pabrai and Spear paid $650,000 US dollars to have lunch with him?
Yeah, for his charity lunch. Yeah.
Like 10 years ago or something. It's probably a bargain, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good investment.
Yeah, probably. It probably was. But that's the thing. Yeah. You'd get so flustered because you'd be wanting to like shit, like what do I need to ask him about next? Like you'd be thinking about what's the right questions to ask to maximize your time. Your efficiency. Who else would you sit down with from history? It can be anyone in history. That's the thing about history. I don't look to the past too much. I know there's as a life lesson, there's so many lessons that can be learned by looking at history. But to be honest, I think it's a good thing to look to history to learn about those lessons. But I think for me, I'm much more interested in looking to the future than looking to the past. That's just me personally. Like I would never do a history class at school. I would never do a history course. I would do something like engineering or future tech or something like that. Something that's likely to happen.
Yeah, no, that's it.
So I don't really know too many figures from history that I would sit down with. What about you?
I don't know. I mean, Bill Gates would be a great one. I think just from interviews from him, he seems so genuine.
Yeah, he seems really nice.
And I mean, the path that he took, he started a business very young as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to talk to Steve Jobs.
That'd be pretty cool.
There's so many. I mean, there's. It's just
the problem is Steve Jobs wouldn't like to talk to you. It's like if you were that guy sitting down with Steve. If I was like the guy, he'd just be like, "What?" Because he just tells it how it is. Like, I probably don't have time for you. Sorry, I gotta go make my iPhone or whatever. I feel like he'd be very abrupt and try and cut you short.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, I don't know. I guess just people in business starting businesses young and get some advice on and advice on investing.
Yeah, businesses. I think that's who I'd like to sit down with, people that have started businesses. Yeah. Online space kind of businesses and how they've done. All right, shall we move on to our here's a funny one. I got in touch with Tom from Investing with Tom, his YouTube channel. Go and follow him as well, by the way, if you don't. He thinks very similarly to how we think. Yeah. He was just pulling my leg though. He was saying, how much will the All Blacks beat Australia by in the World Cup?
Get stuffed.
No, to be perfectly honest, the All Blacks probably got Australia covered pretty comfortably. Australia, when it comes to the All Blacks seem to pump us every time, but I don't follow rugby too much.
I don't follow rugby at all.
Nah.
Sorry, Tom.
Tom, you need to get into the AFL. That's something I can speak to much more. Or the cricket. We can talk about the cricket.
The cricket.
Yeah. Well, even then, he's got the one up on us because New Zealand made it into the final of the World Cup. Australia got knocked out. Oh, actually, that'd be a fairly salty point. Tom, if you like cricket, how do you feel about the World Cup final? How does that make you feel?
No.
That was such a shambles. Did you see that, the end of the World Cup final?
I did, yeah.
Like a tie, and then a whatever they call it, a super over, and then that was a tie.
I feel as though they made that up on the spot.
Yeah, they made it up. It's like the team that had scored the most boundaries, was it, that won? It's like, that's just the dumbest way. It was stupid. When New Zealand finished, I think they finished 8 down. So if they had more time, more overs, they probably would have got another run because they hadn't lost all their wickets. So it's like, man, that sucks for New Zealand. Anyway.
Yeah. Would you recommend becoming a YouTuber?
Usually you give a bit of a segue. Not this time. It's just straight into the next one. Would I recommend it? I tell you what, I would. You got to be in it for the right reasons though. If you're in it for the cash, you never get anywhere because you give up far too quickly because it takes, I don't even know what the rules for monetization on YouTube channels are now. It's like 1,000 subscribers and 10,000 hours of watch time in the last 12 months. Is that right?
When it was mine, it was 4,000 watch hours.
Oh, okay. It's probably that then. So, and it takes a while. Like, it's starting a YouTube channel. It is such a slow grind. I mean, when you start, no one knows who you are. The YouTube algorithm, you're not getting views, so the YouTube algorithm's not pushing your videos. Yeah. I don't know. What are some tips for beginners when they're just starting out YouTube? I think one that I learned from Jeremy, which was quite good, is to focus on your catchy titling first. To try and get the initial amount of viewers. I would say that try and also make videos that are very searchable as well. Yeah,
I think if I had like 2 pieces of advice, the first would be have good titles and thumbnails and a good 1-minute introduction into the video that gets people to stay.
Yeah, straight away. And don't waste time.
Yeah, because that's what you need to get views. Yeah, to get the initial views, and then in order to get subscribers, people who stay on and watch you regularly, the rest of the content in the video just has to be really good. So you can't just clickbait. You might get some good views on some videos, but it won't be sustainable. You won't generate subscribers. Yeah. It won't snowball. And the other way, if your content might be great, but if you're not doing good catchy titles, if you're not attracting people initially, you're not going to get a good amount of views. You're not going to get those videos that outperform your other videos and generate a lot of your subscribers. Like we said, like most of our subscribers came from one video each. Yeah. My subscribers doubled from one video that I made 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And yours, it's insane to think about that. Yeah.
It's just power. No, exactly right. You do actually need to target the thumbnail and the title when you're starting out. They're definitely, you've got to hook people in because you got to. There's so many videos that will be popping up in recommended. You've got to make people want to click your video as opposed to the other videos. And once they're in your video, especially if they're not subscribed and they don't follow you, which is obviously where you start from when you just start out on YouTube, you have to hook them because if they don't know who you are, they clicked your video because the thumbnail and the title was good, and then you've got less than 10 seconds, probably. If I click on a video and then I don't know who they are and they start waffling for 10 seconds, I'm out of there.
Yeah.
I'm out of there in literally seconds.
It kind of depends on what your content is as well, because if you're doing, say, tutorial-based videos where a lot of your traffic is coming from people searching and they want to solve a problem, then you shouldn't have any introduction. I think you should just get to solving the problem, because that bothers me so much when I search, like, how do I do this crossfade in Premiere? And the person's like, hey guys, welcome back to the channel today. I'm like, just show me how to do it. Yeah. And then I'm out of here, you know?
Same thing, like, I need to fix this problem with Windows 10. It's like, oh, guys, this has been a great month for the channel and blah, blah, blah.
And people have those, like, 10-second introduction things with music, like, dun, dun, dun. It's like, I don't care. Hey, guys. It's like... block letters,
yeah, exactly. The ones that give me the shits the most are the ones where it's some sort of tutorial, but there's no speech. There's not someone explaining to you. They just get up like the text thing and they start writing down.
Dude, they used to be so common. How common was that? Where you get up the little notes tab on Windows. It's like, hey guys, it's
blah, blah, blah. It's
Jeremy
your boy.
4X.
yeah, exactly right. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, but... yeah, I think, like, back to the original question, starting a YouTube channel, it's definitely worthwhile, but just do it because you want to do it. Don't do it because you want to get super rich or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually, if you get, like what we've found, if you get a certain decent level of following, you'll be able to, like, the financial side of things takes care of itself. So just stick to doing what you like doing. Make content that you like and that you want to talk about. Because as well, like, it'll never feel like a job if you do it that way. Yeah.
And I mean, what you just reminded me when you say it never feels like a job. That always reminds me of people who maybe people might think that it's like super easy or like it's always going to be easy. Like, it's not easy. Like, I don't know, that's not what you're saying, but it just reminded me. But it's not easy. But it would be impossible to do if we didn't love, like, what content we're talking about and creating videos itself.
I'd say it's not simple, but I would say it's not simple, but it's easy. Like, if you like what you do, then it's easy because it's not simple. There's a lot. It's a very involved process. But, like, even what you were saying before, when we were just setting up this equipment, it's like, this is great. This is like what I live for. This is great. We're literally just like setting up our lights, setting up our cameras and that sort of stuff, and just like having a chat. Whereas, like, if you were someone that was just not inspired about making YouTube content or video content, setting that stuff up, you're like, I don't even want to set up that light. Like, it took me bloody 10 minutes to set this light up. It was ridiculous. But if you're something, you're just like, forget the light.
It's probably 20 minutes to set all of this up and make sure we've got our levels right. And
and if you don't like that, then if you're not passionate about it, then you're just like, I don't want to do that.
Definitely.
You just stop and do something else.
Yeah, don't pick YouTube and then, like, don't pick YouTube, I think. Find what you're passionate about, and then there's so many different ways you can go about doing it, and find the one that makes the most sense for you. Yeah. You can make a podcast, you can make YouTube videos, you can just build a business and just get clients through Facebook groups. That's another way you can do it. You just reach out to people and get clients that way. Like, there's so many different ways that you can start an online business. Yeah. So don't think that, like, YouTube's like the only way just because we're doing it.
Yeah. It's just good for building a personal brand. That's what it's really good for.
Yeah.
And you get to interact with people too.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of businesses.
I love it. I can't get enough of it.
Yeah. A lot of businesses, you don't even interact with your customers. Like, it's very minimal interaction. YouTube, you interact with them all the time. So it's good. All right, let's go on to another question. Yes. I'm going to throw this one at you and see what you say. Do you think there will be a recession specifically next year? Guess. Actually put this on record and see if it comes true, because I know what you're going to say. I know we're going to say we can't predict it.
Yeah.
But just have a guess anyway. Would you say, in your heart of hearts?
If you'd asked me 6 months ago, I would have said yes. If you ask me now, I'm going to say no.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And
why? Is there anything in particular? Or not so much?
I really don't know. I mean, the real answer is I don't know and I don't care.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
But the part of me that says no is driven by the fact that we've thought that one was coming for so long, and it's that psychological problem that everyone has where you think something's going to happen for so long and then it's like it hasn't happened, so it's never going to happen. And that's irrational, which is why I don't make predictions about this kind of thing, because it's irrational. But I think that's why. If I think to my core what I really think is going to happen, I no longer think that it's going to happen. But when I step out of that and go rationally, we have no idea.
Yeah.
And the only way I can assess this is by looking at the businesses that we understand and looking at the cash flows.
Yeah. I think overall, things like price to earnings ratios and debt levels and all that. I think all of these factors point towards something is coming.
Yeah.
Eventually it'll hit this critical moment where kind of like what you had in the GFC. I'm not predicting another GFC, but kind of there was that critical moment where what was it, the
Bear Stearns.
Fill the rest of my sentence in. Where there was just a critical moment where it all came to fruition, where everyone started realizing what was going on. Yeah. And I feel like there might be a point where, debt gets so out of whack and prices of companies get so out of whack versus earnings that it's just people go, no, this is just ridiculous. And then things could just get messy. But you can't predict it, like what we're saying. We just don't know. And what we were talking about before when we were talking off air about The Big Short and how, that moment came and then because there was corruption involved.
Yeah, so the default rates were rising and what's his name? Michael Burry and Eastman is who Steve Carell plays. Both of them had their short positions, and as the default rates rose, it was rational to think that the value of the bonds that they were shorting should have gone down and they should have started making money. But the value of the bonds actually started going up. And it was because the credit agencies had not downgraded their ratings yet. And it was basically because they were getting commissions and they needed it. They needed to give good ratings, or else the banks would just go across the road to the other rating agency and get the AAA rating anyway. So there was actually corruption which was stopping them from making money on their position straight away and kept it rolling for so long.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
And it's a fascinating component that you might not really think about. Is you might be right, but you can still lose.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Especially if there's corruption involved.
Yes.
Then it's just who knows?
Yeah.
Anything could happen. All right, should we go along to... Do you want to do a couple more or just finish up fairly soon?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's... how about we talk about... this is interesting. This is interesting. I'll talk about this one. So the question is, how much should someone invest in an ETF? And the answer to that is that it's completely variable. If you even do want to invest in an ETF, we're not trying to recommend you do anything with your investing. But when it comes to ETFs, I think the question to ask is how much should I be putting aside for investing? I think that's really what the question should ask, not how much should I invest in an ETF, because that's obviously, again, very specific and very individual. But what would you say? So I'll change the question. How much should someone invest? Is it a number, or do you have to take into account other factors?
I think once you've got your emergency fund, once you've paid off high interest debt, because if you have a 15% credit card debt and you're paying 15% interest, by paying that off, you don't have to pay 15% anymore, which means you're making a 15% return. So, and that's probably a lot. That's a guaranteed return that you can make, which you can't get that in the market. You can't guarantee a 15%, 20. Credit cards are realistically 28, 29% now.
Crazy.
So once you've done that, I don't know if there's a rule, but just as much as possible. Because the less that you spend, as long as you have that emergency fund, you have cash available for an emergency, enough that you're comfortable with, invest as much as possible. Because you don't need the money for anything else. And if you just keep it laying around, you're going to spend it on something stupid. I would
butt in and say, though, invest as much as possible, but make sure you're investing, like what you're saying, money that you don't rely on. Definitely. Because you're in a pickle. We always, the classic stock market phrase is don't invest money you need. And so, we want to try and invest as much as possible. But if you need that amount of money to pay rent or potentially an electricity bill or something, don't invest in the markets, because You never the way that so the stock market over a very long period of time, eventually the historical trend is over a very long period of time the stock market goes up, and so the compounding effect does work over a very long period of time, and that's been proven for a very, very long period of time. But to get that compounding effect, you have to be able to leave your money to compound for a very long period of time. So as we always say, in the short term, the stock market can do anything, go up, it go down, it could go sideways, and I couldn't predict it. I don't know what's going to happen. So if you invest money that you need, that means that you might be forced to sell because you actually need that money. And if you're forced to sell, then you've got no say, obviously, of when you sell. So in the short term, you might have made money, you might have gone nowhere, but you might have lost money. So it'd be a terrible place to be in if you wanted to invest, you invested heaps of money, but you actually relied on that money. You made some sort of unrealized loss, and then you needed that money, so you had to sell for a loss because you needed to pay some bill.
Yeah.
Because it just sucks, because the money is made when you invest money you don't need, you leave it in your investments, you monitor your investments, but especially if you're market tracking, you leave it for a very long period of time, and it compounds slowly over like decades.
Definitely.
So that's the one thing I'd add in. Sorry, I kind of took over your answer there.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, just don't invest money that you need.
Here's an interesting one for you. Why do you prefer...
Again with the segue. Here's something else.
Hey guys.
Start whispering. We're doing an ASMR podcast. Anyway.
It's to crack knuckles.
Yeah.
Someone out there's turned off. Never watching it again.
Oh, I got no cracks. Damn it.
Anyway, here's the question. Stop distracting me. Ruin my segue.
I'm sorry. Continue.
Now, the question is, why do you prefer stocks over real estate?
Good question. I actually really like real estate.
I do too.
I've never invested in it. I think stocks are very accessible for anyone, especially beginners. Typically, I know there are things like REITs now, where it's kind of gives you a market. You can invest on an exchange in a diversified real estate portfolio. So I guess real estate investing can also be kind of easily done through the market. But I just like stock market investing. I don't know. I really like business. So I like looking into business. I guess like real estate is typically, if you're a real estate investor, you're running a real estate business because you own the real estate and then you have a tenant and they provide you rental income. So it is a business, but I just like looking at how companies work. I like backing companies that I care about and believe in, that I find interesting, and I find it more interesting. And I guess I don't know the long-term rates of return of real estate versus stocks, but I think they're possibly comparable. In Australia, I'd say they're probably long-term comparable.
Yeah, I think businesses outperform a little bit.
A little bit? Okay.
One thing I like about business is that with real estate, for most people, they're going to buy one property and you're making a big bet on a particular neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of safety nets that come with real estate. It's a lot safer than an individual business, a random individual business, but
slower moving market as well.
Even within a single business that you invest in, you get quite a lot of diversity, not in different businesses, but you get diversity of customers. I mean, many businesses have hundreds of thousands of customers, which means that there's that safety net of the fact that the types of businesses that we look for, the businesses that have been around for quite some time, they have their customer base that's always been there. I find looking into businesses more interesting. I think it's more accessible to more people. I mean, there's lots of benefits. There's benefits to real estate. Real estate is really good for people who, I think for most people, real estate will be the best investment they'll make because it's a forced savings account. Every time you pay down your mortgage, you're gaining equity in the property, which is a forced savings account. You own more of the property.
True.
And more of your money is in the asset. So over time, you're building up an investment portfolio basically in that property. And I think for most people, that's probably the best way to invest because the stock market, you can get swayed by your emotions a lot easier. I mean, it's great that it's liquid, but it's also a massive disadvantage, a massive handicap to people who can't keep their emotions in check.
Yeah.
You're not going to trade in and out of a property. You're not going to freak out at, interest rates going up or something and you just sell your property. That's not possible. It costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars to sell a property. So you're just not going to do that.
Yeah, and I guess that's why we always use real estate as an example when we talk about stock market volatility. It's like we always talk about the guy over the fence that's saying, hey, I'll buy your house for this amount today and this amount tomorrow and this amount next week. And then it's just like, you live in, or you've got tenants in there, it's earning you so much money per year. I mean, it's like, who cares what this other dude's saying? You made your investment, it's maybe paying you a dividend or whatever. If you think about it that way with rental income or something, it's just like, true, the stock market's volatile, but if you take stock market investing and you think about it more as a real estate example, then it's just like, because that's what long-term investors should do. They should think about it like a real estate example. Like you're not buying a stock to sell it. You're not buying a real estate investment to sell it. You're buying it to hold it, for it to generate you cash. So think about the stock market the same way.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If you can take the best bits about real estate investment, which is long-term holding, consistently increasing your equity, meaning you consistently buy stocks instead of trading in and out of them. If you take the good things out of real estate, you focus on cash flow, which is what you do with a rental property. You focus on the price compared to what rental yield you're going to get. Compare the rent to the mortgage prices. What's the net cash flow, your profit out of the property? What are your expenses going to be? If you have that mindset with businesses, then I think the stock market is killer. But it's very hard to do, I think. I think it's very hard to stay rational. It's just an evolved process,
And
it is.
Hard, you're right, hard emotionally.
Because you can't check the price of your property every day, but you can check the price of your stocks.
That's true.
Stocks can move quickly.
They can.
And
should we do one more maybe?
Yeah, let's do one more.
Have you got a good one lined up or should I find one here?
No, I don't.
All right, how about let's do this one here. How did you guys approach first learning to invest? So when you didn't know anything and you just started out, how did you approach trying to learn about it? Or what what would you recommend? How would people go about?
So I'll give
because we probably made heaps. Well, I made heaps of mistakes. I wouldn't recommend you did what I did.
So I can't remember exactly how I started. I know what stocks I bought, and I know roughly what I did. I looked at their profit. I looked at the PE ratio, and I saw that it was low relative to other businesses that I'd looked at. And I just invested that way. I think I made 2 individual business investments first, and then within maybe a month, I started index investing. And I think that's probably what, obviously we can't recommend what people do, but my experience was that I started with an index fund really after those 2 kind of brief investments. Started with an index fund, and I consistently contribute to that to this day. And then slowly over time, my portfolio became less about the index fund and more about individual businesses. But in getting into the stock market, I think index fund is the best way to get exposure. And just get a feel for what's going to happen. And then if you want to actively invest, you can have 90% in an index fund and then 10% in one business that you really like, that you've done a lot of research into. And that way, if the business does poorly and it's not a good investment, you've still got 90% of your portfolio going up at the market average. So
true. And I think even though we've been so focused on active investing and picking individual businesses, we both still are in part passive investing. So we both still have a portion of our portfolios that just tracks the market as a safety net in case we're not as good as what we think we are. Which that's what it could happen.
It's the thing, we don't have track record. So following the philosophy that we follow, 3-4 years of investing is not enough to indicate, especially in a bull market. There's many people who have made a lot of money going up. So you've got to, we're in the position where you've got to be very humble about the fact and always questioning. And this is the best way that you can be successful, is always ask questions and never stop asking questions, and always find the answer to every question that possibly pops into your head. If a question pops into your head and you say, "Oh, don't worry about that," then it's one day one of those questions is going to screw you.
Yeah.
So
Pretty
in
much.
investing or in life. So if there's ever a question that pops in, just obsess about knowing as much as possible, and that way you can protect yourself.
Yeah. I agree. Do you want to finish it up there?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, that was good. How long have we been? We're probably going to go on for close to 2 hours.
Almost 2 hours.
Wow.
Big, long podcast for you.
Massive podcast. But hey, we got to do something special for episode 50. Exactly. Yeah, that's right. No, thanks for listening, guys. It's been really fun. I've enjoyed it.
It's the best. I cannot wait until we have a studio set up and we can do this every week in person, recorded.
That'd be mad. That'd be so good.
It's going to be the best.
Send it to an editor.
Yeah, send it off.
Oh, man. It's just the editing. It takes so long.
Yeah.
But if we can get someone to do that for us, that'd be so good. Come into the studio, sit down, record the podcast. Editor, here you go. We go back to making YouTube content. Go have lunch or something. Yeah. It'd just be awesome. But no, we certainly do appreciate you guys listening through. I know this is a big, chunky podcast, so... we do appreciate you guys listening through it, and we hope that we got you to your question, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to what we've got to say. But yeah, let us know. Of course, we're always open to having more questions. We should be back next week with another podcast, and we'll see if we can chuck in Q&A there. So if you got any questions, just let us know. And as I said at the top of the podcast, if you haven't realized already, which is basically impossible, we are recording this live if you're on a podcasting platform. So there is video for this podcast as well. So we'd very much appreciate it if you wanted to check it out on YouTube as well. That'll be on both of our channels. Yes. We'll cut it up and we'll put it out on both of ours. So
Definitely.
Either Aussie Wealth Creation or Hamish Hodder, and you can see it there. So
awesome.
Yeah, it should be good. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Yeah, thanks very much, guys, for listening or watching. Usually we just say listening/watching. We hope you got something out of it. Let us know all that stuff down in the comment section below, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you later, guys.